them now, but hang on. Perfect. All right. I'm glad you're here this morning. Important. And it's weird because this is an important topic, and yet it's been a somewhat disruptive morning. Both because of noise, like down the street, and things going on around my house, and it's an interesting morning for the topic. And the topic is about trauma grooming. Now, it's not necessarily a word that I've heard used before, but it's a word that the word grooming has been coming up quite a bit lately, especially with all of the cases of sex abuse and molestation and, traffic things that have been in the news. And, when we look at any sort of abuse of children, whether it's mental, emotional, physical, sexual, energetic, no matter what it is, typically, well, not typically, but truthfully, the person who's perpetrating it is a narcissist, someone who wants what they want for whatever reason, and they're willing to take away the rights of somebody else, not only in the moment, but over a bigger time span with a plan to take someone and say, you know what, I'm going to turn them into this sort of a person without allowing that person too much free will or the ability to breathe through it. Now, trauma, as we know, is when something unexpected happens that you have no control over, or you think you have no control over, and you're not allowed to process through. So when we start looking at these cases of child abuse, no matter what they look like, many times we're looking at young women or older women who have been groomed to a certain part. Now, if we start to look around, we start to notice that, wait a second, this grooming doesn't just happen for children with some sort of sex abuse or sex trafficking or things like that. It also happens with women all throughout society and in many dysfunctional family structures. And no matter the reason that this happens, whether it's mental illness or woundedness of someone who was victimized when they were a child, the grooming is still happening. Or even if it's in a romantic relationship with a partner, the grooming is still happening. It's where someone has decided that what they want and who they are is more right. This grooming happens many times when we taught women that they didn't have any rights to their body. They didn't have any rights to say no. They didn't have any rights to what they wanted and what they needed. How can I make myself submissive to my needs? And we were glorified for that, because when you look at when someone is groomed, they're rewarded for doing what the groomer wants them to do, and punished when they don't. Is this starting to sound familiar for those of you who have narcissists in your life? Is it starting to sound familiar that whether they consciously or subconsciously were grooming you? And one of the reasons narcissists get into relationships is because they're looking for someone who is raw material to groom, raw material that they can shape into the person that they want them to be, either so the narcissist can feel safe, or the narcissist can have their deal with their insecurities, whatever it may be. Nobody's being put in a bad box today. And one of the ways that narcissists use that is through trauma. How many times when you've been in a relationship with a narcissist have they done something that traumatized you? It was unexpected. You didn't feel like there was anything you could do about it, either because you were trained that way from your family or from society. There's no place to process it through. Identify that this has happened. I can't tell you how many women have come to me and no one to tell, to help them process through the thoughts and feelings and emotions, and they just got to the point where they realized, oh, I can't say no. I never say no. I'm not really allowed to say no. And if I do say no, then the world really is going to kind of explode in my face. And I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be bad. So I want you to start thinking of the good girl syndrome, or the people pleasing, or the stuffing of your emotions. I want you to expand your thoughts a little bit, because we don't think about these things as trauma. We don't think about, the fact that we never said much of us, and was grooming in a way to say your rights matter. And this is why so many women keep narcissist abuse or childhood abuse, because they think that this is just the way that it is. Either from society, shut up and take it, or from their family, or from the narcissist that says, you have no rights, and you shouldn't say no. It's not in your best interest to say no. Now, this is interesting because, we've also been talking about the peace process. And the peace process when you're working with someone who's wounded is to not resist, to give them the space to breathe and to express and to move through their emotion. Now this, sneakily sounds like being a people pleaser, being codependent, being victimized by somebody. This sneakily looks just like that. What's the difference between the peace process and someone who has been trained to be codependent? The peace process happens when someone is a healthy, more balanced adult who knows that it's a choice and that they can protect themselves and that they can say no, and they're choosing, they're not by any other emotions, they're choosing to help someone heal. And the trick is, if someone hasn't done their own healing work, and I really shouldn't say work, but just their own healing, if they haven't found a place of safety for themselves, if they haven't learned that it's okay to say no, if they haven't learned that they have rights, if they haven't learned that they're not alone, then it's abuse. Then it's that narcissistic, codependent relationship again. After you've gotten some help, after you've gotten grounded, and you feel you have a better idea of how the world works, then you can go in and start helping people who have been wounded to work through their wounds. Because many narcissists, as well as many codependents, they got to this situation in the same place. They were groomed by someone. And many times narcissists have their own trauma in the background, and they were groomed that they don't have any rights, which is why then they take the rights from other people. Because they think, well, you either have rights or you have no rights. Which one are you going to be? There's no balance. Or the tiger or the rabbit. Which one are? And so it's a very dividing line. It's either or. There isn't an expansion of how we all fit together to make it work. How we all have rights, and by coming up to a higher level, we can create something pretty great. That's not the mindset. It's still a mindset of you're either predator or you're prey. And this is a very, very common worldwide thought process. Either or, yes or no. And that's what's cool about women starting to come to the forefront, is because women really work best in collaboration and community about how we all have equal rights and how we raise everybody up. And a more patriarchal situation, which is grooming for whole countries, whole families, whole cultures, it's grooming. We want you to be this way despite what you feel, what you want, what you need, and we're going to use manipulation techniques and coercion techniques and trauma and anger, and we're going to keep you trapped in trauma so that you can't ever see past it, so you can't ever move forward. So, many times people talk about the narcissist codependent relationship as two very wounded people. And it's true, which means that the two shouldn't be helping one another, because it's that predator-prey, and the predator just continues to groom and continues to train you, the codependent, whether it's coming from the government, or some position of authority, whether it's coming from a family member. It's still the same sort of thing, where someone is objectified and they're looked at just a piece to serve a need. They're not looked at as a human being with rights and needs and wants of their own. So if you're in a position with a narcissist, I want you to stop and consider for a second. Open up your mind. One of the biggest problems are these secrets, the secrets around narcissists and codependents and that dynamic, which, as I said, can begin in childhood with an alcoholic parent or a drug abuser, or depression or anxiety or trauma in their past. This is how these situations happen, and whether it's purposeful or not, it's still a grooming. And so many women, they think nothing happened. They were groomed to think that this is no big deal, that their rights don't matter, they have no voice, that even if they do speak up, that no one will listen to them. And so they have that learned submission, that I'm just going to submit because it's the easiest way. This is different from the peace process. The peace process is choosing to submit, not because you don't have any choices, but because you are the re-victim. Someone doesn't. They don't really realize that there's a bigger world out there, and that they don't know that their rights matter, and that they endure things which are traumatic and painful because they think that that's what they need to do. When you start looking at whether you're considering whether you've moved to have a narcissist in your life, and whether somewhere along the line they use trauma, purposely or not, but you were you in a place of submission, and then other people capitalized on it and continued the training that you were under. All those things about people pleasing and good girls, and many times, it was passed down generation to generation, and it wasn't seen as a big deal. But when I started to look at my family, my immediate family, many of the women all throughout the line and the men were trained that this is just the way that it is, or that a good person, a good woman, a good man, this is the role they play. They sacrifice themselves for everyone else, no matter what. I want you to think about that, because even if it didn't look like or feel like or seem like any sort of trauma or any sort of abuse, as I said, purposeful or not, no one's saying that the intention was bad, but it was a grooming. It was a grooming that allowed you to be victimized, a grooming that encouraged you to look for a victimized situation, because that's what life is supposed to look like. So I want you to take a step back today. Here's what I'd like you to do. I want you to take a step back and think about the areas where you either had trauma, which was consistent over and over and over and over, where it was a grooming, where you felt like you had no rights, that your voice didn't matter, that it was your job to keep everybody happy, where you learned amazing skills on how to get along. And this was one of my biggest problems with self-help especially when I was in my 20s and 30s, because a lot of it was geared for men, about how you just need to be more compassionate, you just need to be more flexible, you just need to be more understanding, you just need to be more, for men. And these were actual issues that they struggled with, because the majority of narcissists are men, even though there are a number that are women. But they struggle with having that. Women, on the other hand, were told you need to be more flexible, you need to be more compassionate, you need to be more understanding, which were already the rules that they were living under. And it was purposeful or not, it was still another grooming. It was still another shaping you into that your experience and your traumas and your feelings and your rights do not matter, and that they will not be heard, and that it's best to shut up and take it and give to everybody else no matter what, because that's what you're supposed to do. So whether it turned into something, that's being with a full-blown narcissist, or whether it's being with someone that just doesn't really care about you or about what matters to you, it's still the same sort of dynamic. And it's time to look at yourself with a more compassionate eye, and also to look at the narcissist with a more compassionate eye too. Part of the problems we end up stuck in our traumas is because we don't understand how someone can behave the way that they behave. We don't understand how someone can treat us a certain way or be a certain way. And that conflict inside of us, that not understanding, is what keeps us trapped. Because then every time you get close to it, the emotion comes up, and then the emotion floods us. It reminds us, we get flashbacks of our trauma. Even talking about or thinking about this subject today before I filmed it, it was bringing back flashbacks, flashbacks from my own life, about my own experiences. So, I want you to think about this stuff, to get a little bit better understanding maybe of how you got here and how the narcissist got here, and think about a little bit bigger picture. Think about how you were groomed to be in the position that you're in now, to kind of be taken advantage of. Consciously or subconsciously, it still happened. And when you have that bigger picture, when you have that lens where you can look at the narcissist and you can look at yourself and you can look at society. Sorry about that. I got a phone call coming in and it cut off the live stream. So, what I was saying, I want you to look at that. I want you to look at it through a bigger lens, because when you have some understanding, you'll have a little bit more peace. And when you have a little bit more peace, then you won't go into your traumas as much, and you'll be able to stay balanced and rational, and you'll be able to start healing yourself, okay? And then when you get to a place, then you'll be able to be a peacemaker, which can look a lot like being codependent, except it comes from a very healthy place, a very grounded place, okay? So that's it for today. If you feel stuck, mosquitoes running around. If you feel stuck, if you need a little bit of extra help, I help women a number of ways. One, I've partnered with a book on narcissism. Another one, I have a private group coaching program where we have a call every week and a private Facebook group to work through this stuff. The third one is you can do one-on-one coaching with me directly, and then just message me, because you're not meant to do this by yourself. You're not meant to figure this out because you've been busy doing what you needed to do. And you can't see the bigger picture when you're in the middle of it. It's like looking at the puzzle when you're in the puzzle. You just can't see it. And so we have to work with other people who've been through the same process, who can help you see a new way of being and a new way of thinking. Because one of the cool things about, let's say being codependent, is that many of us are extraordinarily strong. And we're strong because we've learned how to endure and how to submit and how to push our own needs down and still function. How to be functioning in the most crazy, dysfunctional, traumatic, painful situations. We still function. We still function well, which means that most women who are codependent are very, 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 very strong. And recognizing that they can trust people and you don't have to do it by yourself anymore is one of the biggest steps. That you are strong, but you can't do this by yourself. Okay? So, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'm going to talk to you later, okay? Bye.